Ever since the console version of Sonic Colors, the importance of the expanded and even supporting cast have been severely reduced in the Sonic series. There are a multitude of factors driving this shift in direction, Sonic 06 being a large one. Its shortcomings and lack of polish was put partially to blame on the amount of playable characters featured in the game, with claims that the developers would have had more time to finish Sonic 06 if not for the other characters' inclusions. Another was the calls for a return to form from critics, chastising games that they betrayed the series' roots in favour of a lackluster 3D experience, as they would put it. Regardless of the root cause though, Sega were determined to shake up the pillars of the modern Sonic experience, so as to redefine it for a new decade. That decade is now behind us, and is sometimes referred to as the Meta era or the Boost era. During that time period, Sonic began to take front and centre in every experience, only being accompanied by Tails at most, and usually only confronting Eggman and his lackeys of the week. Going from having a varied collection of playstyles to just one was seen as a welcomed return to form for Sonic by those that grew tired of alternative playstyles such as Big the Cat, anticipating not only a more polished Sonic control scheme, but also a game that had larger amounts of Sonic stages, now that they didn't need to share the spotlight with others. For other people though, and by no means an insignificant amount, the sudden exclusion of multiple playable characters, which had been a staple since Sonic 3, was felt as an immense loss of potential, as well as a simplification of a once varied experience. No matter what your own thoughts on this shift in focus are, the undeniable result was the tokenization of the Sonic cast, limited now to brief cameos or spin-off only appearances, if they were lucky. There was little need to continue character storylines or develop their personalities. Indeed, it was even seen as cumbersome to have these storied characters with histories and depth when all that was needed of them was a short appearance for marketing. As such, many of the Sonic cast had their character traits reduced, remaining ones exaggerated, and histories simplified to better suit their new minor roles. This had two dramatic effects. One was that for those fans who did care about the characters, even just for story purposes without gameplay, a major draw they had to the series had just been vandalized. Characters acting out of character and becoming stereotypes that they once upon a time overshadowed with a more nuanced portrayal. This made it hard to enjoy some forms of Sonic media when the characters felt like parodies of themselves, yet were now the official versions. The other impact of this change was that newer fans would be introduced and acquainted with these characterized versions, coming to expect nor want anything more of them. Seemingly lost to Sega during this period was the fact that it was the collection and interactions of Sonic's large cast that had drawn a lot of public attention towards the series throughout the entire 2000s. Phenomena such as the Sonic original character craze and mass amounts of fan-created content stemmed around and were emblematic of people's attachment to the colourful denizens of Sonic's world. As the years drew on, more and more fans would begin to speak up on the disappearance of Sonic's friends, as well as the strange fixation on only ever getting to play as Sonic in the games. Alongside this were growing examples of more egregious character portrayals in all forms of Sonic media, which in turn brought more attention to the issue. Eventually, Sega would bless the world with the gift of Sonic Forces, a vengeful demon which had come to take everything we held dear whilst disguised as what people had asked for. Characters were back, and a lot of them, featuring in a story with some stakes and ample opportunity for the cast to display their unique traits, as well as being perfectly suited for multiple playable characters. What happened was we got 3 versions of Sonic, 4 if you count Shadow, and one of which was a customizable OC, which indicated Sega was aware of the community's fascination with that concept. The other characters were mostly regulated to dialogue boxes, set up to be inspirational figures, but ironically ending up looking like pathetic jokers who couldn't stand up without Sonic. All of that history is to say, things were not looking great for the Sonic cast during the last decade. However, things were beginning to change, albeit slowly. Although completely mishandled, Shadow's continued appearances showed that Sega knew his popularity. The Sonic Boom TV show would feature Vector the Crocodile in one of its episodes. A tradition was even founded called Sonic's Twitter Takeover, where the cast would read and respond to fan questions on Twitter, and this tradition would increase in size and cast as it went on. Now, at present day, a new dawn seems to be shining on the Sonic characters. Sonic movies 1 and 2 were both huge successes that satisfied and attracted a large amount of fans, of whom were exposed to a reintroduction of not just Sonic, but Tails and Knuckles as well. For Knuckles in particular, the second movie not only introduced his character to many, but was a notable improvement in his presentation compared to the games of the 2010s. The Sonic Twitter takeovers continued to portray the Sonic cast in a more relaxed light, where fun is to be had with their unique quirks. When it initially started, the behaviours of the characters were still quite close to their meta counterparts, but as the series has progressed, the portrayals of the cast have become a lot more palatable, with 2022's takeover in particular being a great showing of all the characters. And I must note that there are still clear differences in the characterizations of their actions in the Twitter takeovers than what I would like to see from the games. But that series is supposed to just be light-hearted fun, and I'm not so much of a grumpy old man to be unable to acknowledge that. Sonic Frontiers also featured some of Sonic's friends, namely Tails, Amy, and Knuckles. And whilst, yes, those three were already featured the most, the difference is that Frontiers spends dedicated time with each of them, addressing character inconsistencies, re-establishing their long-abandoned traits, and then setting them up with a plan for the future. Frontiers was clearly focused on restoring the characters to a depth they once held, and it largely succeeded. In addition to them, however, Frontiers made numerous mentions to other Sonic characters, featured Big the Cat, and spent a long time developing a new character, Sage. All of these actions indicate that Sonic characters in general are receiving a renewed focus from the developers. Last but not least of all is the upcoming Sonic Prime Netflix show, which will be featuring a sizable amount of Sonic characters with multi-dimensional counterparts. The entire show is basically a social experiment seeing how different circumstances affect the attitude of Sonic's friends, as well as Eggman. Such a concept relies on having a backbone, a basis of character traits to build off from. Based on what has been made public so far, it seems as if Sonic Prime will deliver on having the cast feeling unique and interesting, and maybe most importantly, useful. So far, the 2020s seem to be a far cry from the Sonic-only nature of the past decade. With all these factors pointing towards more meaningful character inclusions, the only thing we are missing now is having other playable characters besides Sonic, which are also not clones of him. Hopefully such inclusion will be present in the next Sonic title, as there really is no good reason to abstain from it now. Until we hear news of whatever the next planned Sonic game is, we'll just have to speculate on that front. And that brings us to the end of this topic. Thank you for watching this video all the way to its conclusion. If you found what I had to say interesting and would like to see more, please leave a like on the video. Comment and share around if you want this discussion to grow. And if you're still in the mood for some Sonic conversation, why not check out my previous video, Chaos Theory, a lore dive into the mysteries introduced with Sonic Frontiers that we tried to solve together. Though of course, spoiler warning if you do decide to watch that video. I hope you have a great day, and to see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.